Can you talk about this remapping of your brain, the scientific science behind it? Because so many people, they don't know such a thing is possible, and they're like, "No, I always did this. I was always practiced like this. It hurts me my whole life." I'm like, "Okay, just be done with it. Wrap it up. Just go heal. Just deal with it. Heal yourself. Close it, move on." Can you please talk about that?
Absolutely. So I have workshops on, emotional management, which it's very much sort of correlated to cognitive behavioral therapy. In early childhood, most of our decision making and behavior is based on emotions only because our brain hasn't mapped yet. Brain mapping is
Mhm.
a continuous sort of a process that it's at two times in our lives. And brain mapping basically means all the brain cells, neurons, are connecting to other neurons, which is a very complicated
Mhm.
structure. But just to make it sort of simple, as you know, in your profession,
Mhm.
you know about this.
Yes.
So brain mapping means when we're born with billions of neurons. They're not attached to anything. They look sort of like a little head, like a pinhead with a little bit of a tail.
Mm.
The next 2 years, the brain tries to connect all these sort of tails to each other, which is a really complicated process. But then the next 3 years after that tries to organize these sort of um, brain cells and the tails. Not only they're connected, but it organizes it. Sort of like if you look into a city, you see there are residential houses. And
Mm.
next to them, there are shopping centers. And next to them, there's maybe a church, a synagogue, or a mosque, or temple. So everything that the family needs to survive is sort of clustered in one way. So the brain, between the preschool years, tries to cluster itself because brain of a human being is extremely smart and always tries to put things in habitual forming sort of process, kind of like an autopilot. So
Mm.
therefore, that's brain mapping. That's how
Mhm.
you learn to respond to things, even though first 5 years you respond emotionally. That's why kids
Mhm.
have tantrums, because our first behavior comes from our amygdala, which is a point in the midbrain
Mhm.
to respond to emotion because all this clustering is happening, brain is haywire. So until we go to school, once we go to school, then all of the logic organizes. So,
Mm.
however, you have been taught to organize thoughts, how to respond to emotions, how to respond to sort of unusual situations, how to respond to thoughts, how to respond to other people's behavior, how to respond to your own sort of feelings, mapped already
Mhm.
because the clustering has happened.
Yes.
So if you're a 30-year-old person, especially in PTSD nowadays, they're finding out that one of the fastest ways is to work with a client to first investigate how the brain mapping early on happened. How
Mhm.
did you react? How did your parents react when you failed at something? How did you reacted when you were jealous?
Mm.
So you analyze previous mapping and then logically
Mm.
replace those behaviors or the thoughts of those behaviors with new, more effective ways.
Mm.
It's effective because you're not dismissing
Mhm.
events in life. You're not saying this didn't happen to me. You're not saying let's
Mhm.
just forget about it. You are looking into it by analyzing it. Oh, then when somebody says something that upsets me, I'm still reacting the same way that I did when I was 3 years old. Well, I have news for you. You're not 3 years old anymore. You are 30 years old. So we basically remap the brain to bring itself up to date to the age of the person and start behaving as a 30-year-old, not
Mhm.
forgetting, not pushing out memories, but accepting it and say, now I understand why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So for many, 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 many years, psychology sort of focused on psychoanalysis. People would go to a
Mm.
shrink, as they call them, to this, and then they talk, and then they talk. And then if the psychologist was Freudian, would sort of like get to the root. And in Freud, there are 5 stages of development, and they will find a complex. Where was it that the complex was not resolved within that age group, and you're just carrying it with you? But psychoanalysis takes time, and psychoanalysis doesn't work for everybody. And for people who can't remember certain memories, it's hard to do psychoanalysis. So new methods such as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, sort of neurofeedback, biofeedback, hypnosis, all of these have been developed to work sort of like for people that other traditional psychology doesn't doesn't work effectively. So CBT for adults is shown to be very effective.
Wow, love it. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I feel like it played such a big role in my understanding myself for myself. And I love to advocate this, and I love to advertise this is how important it is to just touch your childhood and go back, reopen all those wounds, analyze one more time. It's tough, it's rough, but it's once you're gonna do it, and like everything is gonna be so beautiful, like reset again. So it's definitely a must if you have a desire to create a new version of yourself. It's a must direction that you need to go.
Absolutely. And the good news is you will reach that peace of mind that everybody is looking for. Peace of mind is not having any stress. Often, even physicians say this. People go to a physician or a psychologist and say, I'm stressed, blah, blah. And the first thing that comes out of these sort of professionals' mouth is, you need to reduce your stress. Well, I have news for you. No one has ever been successful
without the stress. Like my life is a daily war. It's okay. So, but is how I look at it. And then of course I do have some time that I get lost again. So I go up this curve and I come down the curve, and then I come back to my senses and I'm like, oh shit. Okay. No, again, I'm going to go back to my own perspective to looking at the problems, because if I look at them, oh, these are my problems, they will be a problem. But if I'm going to look at them like these are my difficulties, and let me see what is the best way I can solve these difficulties, or what extra help or hand I can get, or delegate this to someone else. So then is my perspective toward the stress that I have. Then is my perspective toward that difficulty and challenge that I have. So success, part of it is difficulty, part of it is the stress, but how do you deal with the stress? How do you even, what is it that you call a stress? Of course it's going to be stressful, of course it's going to be a bumpy road in the direction of your success, but like how do you deal with all those stress factors? It just will define you, and it will help you to learn new strategies to handle every different abstract.
Absolutely. So to sort of when a physician or a psychologist says, you have to reduce your stress, this doesn't mean now we have to focus on, from now on, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Obviously, you have to get rid of problematic situations and people in your life. There's no question about it. If your job is killing you, you need to reconsider. If your partner is killing you, it's just not a good match. You need to get out of it. No question about those things. But to live in an ideal world that someday
doesn't exist.
It's impossible.
It doesn't exist.
And that will actually drive you to overly perfectionist planning, sort of a human being that cannot function in a real world. I mean, you can be planning everything so to reduce stress. You get to the airport and your airplane is delayed. There's nothing you can do about it. So all the planning to get there on time is now sort of like in your mind killing you. Why I rush? So stress itself has to be understood. And Helen, I think maybe your audience will benefit, maybe one of the topics of one of your guests or somebody, to just talk about the stress. We have to understand the stress. When we say stress, we're talking about a couple of things. We're talking about physiological reactions here, which is completely normal. And you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about cortisol. So cortisol is part of a closed circuit hormonal chain that we have. Two adrenal glands, you know, is on our sitting on our kidneys. As soon as somebody is a stress, you know, you're late for something, or your flight is delayed, or somebody you're waiting for is not getting home, you're worried. All of a sudden, now your system kicks in. Cortisol is produced. And cortisol, when it's produced, it's a good thing. It's supposed to tell you something is happening and I'm not happy about this. And cortisol will go eventually, and we won't get into the you know, the specifics of it. That's another topic. But once it gets to your brain, it's supposed to put your mind into two states: fight or flight. Now, this worked for early humans because it saved them. Otherwise, without cortisol, I doubt it very much if human beings as a species would have survived. Because it was
for sure. Yeah.
The cortisol that told that early human, hey, you can fight this animal, so stay and, you know, claim your territory. Oh, you know what? Just run as fast as you can. But the thing is, those days when the early humans decided to run, because cortisol now you know, met with the amygdala, and they decided it's time to run.
Yeah.
This early human will find their cave and they run into it. So the animal would be left behind. Once they got to their cave, peace came on. So it was used as a sort of a survival technique. The problem is, we were never taught how to deal with that cortisol and what to do with it. And most of all, which decision should I make, fight or flight? So what we do, we run to our house. But guess what? That animal follows us into our house. And unfortunately, our homes isn't functioning like the cave for the caveman anymore. So you come home and that stress comes with you because you ran from the animal, but you didn't find peace. How sad is that?
Yeah.
That when you come home, there's no peace because the animal came with you, because you didn't learn that when you run, it means you're safe. Don't let it follow you to the house. So
I
this is
love the analogy. Wow.
so we can't get rid of a stress. We can't rid of cortisol. We're gonna die. I need to learn how to put that cortisol to a productive way, which means, how do I know? As soon as cortisol is produced, a couple of things happens. By the time it finds its way to the brain, if you're angry, somebody said something, somebody did something, your boss said something, you didn't do something. If you're angry, signs are very specific. Your blood pressure goes up, your heartbeat goes up, your head gets hot. That's cortisol telling you something is going on. I don't like it. Decide what you want to do. Or we ignore it. So when cortisol is produced continuously, it becomes poisonous. And that's where we're in trouble.
Give me like, for example, one solution. Let's say when you feel like that, when you get heated like that, like, okay, if you can't do this, what do you suggest?
So this is where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in, the CBT comes in. So if somebody said something, my boss said something, or I forgot about a deadline or something like that, as soon as cortisol and heartbeat goes up, first thing, and this also is part of emotional management, which means I recognize it. I don't keep telling myself it's nothing. Don't worry about it. They said something. It's not important. Let's just go talk to someone because the animal is going to follow you. So the first step is acknowledging what physiologically is happening to you. Saying something like, I get you. I know you're angry. This person said this, or you didn't do your job. Okay, let's accept it. I know I didn't do it.
Okay, sometimes you want to accept it, but like you can't, because like you want to accept it, but your physiological part of it, like the heat, like how you feel, like doesn't allow it to accept it. And then is there anything physically that we can do? Can we go for a
Yes, of
walk?
course. Yes, of
Can we
course.
do something to de-stress?
Absolutely. So part of the fact that we're not able to always think that clearly, because at times it's impossible. You know, there's an earthquake, there's fire. I mean, there's no way, there's no time to logically face something. So in this case, what you can physically do, you start breathing, because once cortisol gets to the brain and blood pressure is up, heartbeat is up, your brain is not getting enough oxygen. There are things that you need to physically do. There's no buts or ifs about it. So you drink a little bit of water, and room temperature, by the way, and you start breathing technique. And one thing that I always tell my clients is change your sensory. Your sensory are our senses. Every message we get are through our sensories. Either we touch something, we see something, we taste something, we hear something, right? So if that person just said something that sort of shot up your stress level, you start your breathing technique, and everything I'm telling you, Helen, I do myself. You know, I don't give advice when I'm not doing it. So
Of thank you.
When I'm stressed, immediately I go to, what is it? Is it the thing the person said? Is it something that is a remembrance of something? What is it I'm feeling right now? I don't ignore it. I just don't say this person said something to upset me. I look for it. And these, Helen, takes milliseconds in your head. Time is very fast. And then I decide whether to run or fight. Whether to fight or flight. I decide this is something I want to deal with, or is this something that I need time? To have time means I have to bring my blood pressure down, my heartbeat down, and that only is with a sensory. So I tell my clients, if you're sitting, get up, walk away, go outside, take a breather, touch leaves or plants. What happens? Brain, remember I said it's very smart, very complicated, but at the same time it's very simple. As soon as you introduce another sensory, now it has to pay attention to something else.
Wow, I like that. Okay.
Change your sensory. Okay.
Okay.
So, and I also tell my clients, if you're driving, somebody sort of cut you off in front of you, or you're running late for something, change the sensory. Roll down the window, put on air conditioning, turn on the radio. You need to distract the cycle of this blood pressure, heartbeat, and lack of oxygen to the brain. You need to change it. So these are actual things you do. I'm telling you, I do them myself. And then once you get good at it, guess what?
It becomes a habit, and you
It's
just
a
fall
habit.
to it so fast. The
And then,
response will become, your brain will go there so quickly.
and two, you have solutions coming to you like a miracle. The boss just accused you of not doing, having done something. You're prepared. You go through the same motion, take a breath, drink a little bit of water, and you tell your boss, I take responsibility.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do? You don't sit there beating yourself up trying to say,
absolutely
he's
not.
always picking on me, he's always doing this, or I did do it, or I tried to, I'm
No.
given an opportunity. Remember we said you recognize your role in what just. So I have a lot of sort of a smart answers that because I practice this and I'm very, so when people say things and I give you a real example. When
Yeah.
I walk into a gathering, for example, the
Yes.
first person that sees me says something like, have you lost weight? You
Mm.
know, and if I've lost weight, I tell them.
Mhm.
If I haven't lost weight, I don't stand there arguing with them. You say, I don't know. I weigh myself every day. So I don't think I've lost weight. Or if
Mm.
somebody says something like, you lost weight, you look old. And I say, yeah, you're right. My husband doesn't feed me. You need to go talk to him. And I walk away. And
Yeah.
these, and I become so it becomes a sort of a game, how
Mm.
I can diffuse, not
Yeah,
embarrass anybody, how to
definitely.
diffuse, right? And I walk in, the third person says, you look good, you gain a few pounds. The same gathering.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
happens all the time. And I'm using, like
Yes.
weight gain, because, women and us are sort of like in a topic of the discussion.
Yeah.
So, what I do, I say to this other person, I say, you know what? So and so just told me I lost weight. You think I gained weight? I think you should go
Mm.
talk to her and sort of make up your minds and then come tell me. And I laugh about it.
Okay.
And this is
Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
embarrass anybody.
Yeah.
This is to
Yeah.
diffuse the situation in my mind that is
Mm.
okay. So if you look
Yeah.
a little, over, you've gained. So, all right, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. This is not a battle I want to fight. So
Mhm.
I
No.
run,
Yeah.
but I make an sort of I interject in it,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So these are the things that you can do. But so CBT works when
Mhm.
you learn not to focus on the person,
Mhm.
but to focus on how that person's action, thought, or words have shaken you, and how
Mhm.
you can sort of go back to a core. If anybody
Mhm.
thinks it doesn't work, it works like a miracle. These are steps you take. And of course, I'm trained in emotional regulation and in emotional management. So I also attend to my amygdala. So I have to attend to my cortisol. At the same time, I am attending to my amygdala.
Mhm.
First thing I do with my anger or my sort of sadness, if somebody says something
Mhm.
that I didn't expect, I attend to it. I say, yeah,
Mhm.
this made you
Yeah.
sad. What are you
Yeah.
going to do
I
about it?
allow myself to be sad. I allow myself
And
to
it's
go through my
okay.
grieving process. Yes, for
It's
sure.
the all normal process of
It
being a,
is.
you can't shut it down.
And I used to run away from it. I used to pretend nothing can hurt me. And because I told myself I'm strong, I never allow myself to go to grief for anything. And I turned to this person that hold years of pain inside, and then it's gonna burst somewhere. It's going to burst somewhere, and it's going to create a wall around you. Is going to not allow you to experience life fully, because these walls, they're going to disconnect you from people, from the people that you love, from yourself to yourself, from what you want to experience in life. So one of the lessons that I learned is, like, if something is making me sad, allow myself to be sad. And this, I didn't cry for so many years because I thought my quality was supposed to be a strong person. And I'm like, what is a strong? Strong is if I allow myself to cry. Now I'm strong. So because I allow myself to grieve, I allow myself to go home and says, today is my day and I want to do my grieving. This hurts me, but let me reevaluate the whole situation, see why it hurt me, what happened, why it triggers me. So definitely listening to yourself and just allowing yourself grief, it just plays such a big role, such a big role.
So let me sort of give the final note on emotions so that
Mm,
we understand what emotions we need to accept wholeheartedly and let it go through, and
mhm,
what emotions we need to sort of go head to head with them. So
mhm,
the two kinds of emotions that were born, emotions that we deal with. One that we're born with, we call those
Mm.
basic or primary emotions. Those should
Mhm.
never be dismissed,
Mhm.
because those are the key to our survival and
Mhm.
to our physiological human being.
Mm.
That's sadness, that's anger, that's content,
Mm.
that's resentment,
Mm.
and that's stress. Okay,
Mm.
these are normal.
Mm.
You cannot, you cannot dismiss them. It's part of our biology. The other kinds of emotions that we learn between the ages of 2 and 5 are called secondary emotions or complex emotions. We learn these, like shame, like guilt, like uh, rage. These are not normal. These are the ones that we need to find the original emotion that was ignored because somebody told us, why are you mad? Why are you angry? There's no
Mm.
reason to be angry, where you had every reason to be angry. Instead of listening to you and why you're angry when you were 3 years old, somebody took your toy, you pushed some kid and then they pushed you back, or you just didn't know why you're behaving this way.
Mhm.
So we need, it's very important for parents to learn emotional management for themselves and how to
Mm.
teach their kids to not miss these primary basic emotions. Anger, these are
Mm.
survival techniques. Now, what Freud said about that we call the iceberg metaphor, we put anger or sadness or such primary emotions on top of the iceberg, which is, always seems to be smaller than what it actually is. But
Mhm.
for your audience, if they're angry, they're sad, they're, they distasteful of something, or any of those emotions, look into the base of the iceberg.
Mm.
That's what you need to
Mm.
address. When somebody says to you, you don't look good, what's happening? If
Mm.
that shakes you to the core, you gotta go and see
Yeah.
what's under the iceberg,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
remember, it was the bottom of the iceberg that broke the Titanic.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where the Titanic.
How were you criticized by your own family in the society when you were a kid at school? I criticize myself so much. I am like sometimes my own worst enemy until like figure out. And it was like
Yeah,
until I woke up, I'm like, oh my God, none of this is my own emotion. This is my mom's, which I'm carrying. This is what she said, and I carried all the information. I hold all the information, and this is through her eyes. This is through her understanding, and this is not my emotion. And I decided to separate myself and go in front of the mirror. I said, I like you. I love you from the way that you are. That you do your best. You do your workout. You're intentional about what you eat and how you take care of yourself, and this is it. You are best of in whatever you are. But it's really hard because sometimes we have this voice that we carry from our childhood, and it's not even our own voice, it's
that's
someone
your brain
else's
mapping.
voice.
That's your brain mapping. That's
Yeah.
what you learn to react to things in that way as a matter of survival.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we should only, if you criticize yourself, it's because you're living up to someone else's standard.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't do self-criticize but are always striving to do better are people that know their own potential.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you
Yes.
don't compare yourself to someone else. Now, if someone else has successes that you want, you still have to go back to your inner soul and say, is this what I want to do because I think I should or
Mm-hmm.
I can? Or is this something
Mm-hmm.
that I just want to do so that I can, sort of, this is not a contest.
Yeah.
So
It's now.
to strive for excellence
Yep.
is a drive that makes us better,
Yep.
but only better compared to our own inner soul. So you can't compare, you cannot compete with other people if you don't know what you're made of.
Mm.
So you
Mm.
want to start somewhere, start from within, find your inner gem? What is your inner jewel? What are you supposed to be doing? What is your
Mm,
potential?
yeah,
Then
love
start
it.
from there. Set it up. And don't look at anywhere. Don't compare yourself to it. This is you. This is your life. This is your
Mm,
speed. Be the
yeah,
best you can be.
yeah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah to that.
Hallelujah to that. Beautiful. Oh my God. The way that you dissect everything is like, I can listen to you for hours and hours and hours. Like, you're hypnotizing me. I'm like, so good. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Helen. You're wonderful, and you're a great sort of collaborator. So
Oh,
makes me
thank
remember
you.
things. But
Oh, thank you.
of course, my pleasure. Thank you.
Right. So I just looked at the time. We did good.
Okay, say goodbye to the audience.
Okay. I again am gonna go back to how valuable was this time that you donated to us. How informative this session was. Like I have joy coming out of my heart and my whole head and everything. Like, I'm so grateful to have this chance even to meet you. And thank you for this beautiful session.
Thank you, Helen, for creating this opportunity. And I cannot tell you enough. I'm grateful to women like you and yourself, because women have not been given equal opportunities, and the skill building and the leadership,
Yeah.
so that, and it's ironic because
Yeah.
women comprise 51% of the world's population, and
Mm,
it is, I could never understand how the
mm,
majority became the minority,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
how the minority has not yet
Yeah.
found a way to be as productive. I
Yes.
mean, we could talk hours
Absolutely. Hours.
the
Hours.
importance of women's equality, and it is much more, it's much more deeper than people think, that women equality means the right to abortion, or the right to equal pay. It's like that iceberg that I was talking about. The UNICEF and the World Health Organization have put out warnings in 2021
Mm,
that if we do not prepare, educate, and train women to become leaders of this world until 2050, that
mm,
the whole world is in a world of trouble.
mm,
And there is so much to be said about that. So when
mm.
women like yourself take the leadership role,
Thank you.
not only sharing their journey, their
Mm-hmm.
story, and their narrative, but also are doing something about it. That's just one little ding in paving the
Mm,
road for
mm.
women. Um,
Thank
so
you.
much more to be said about that, and
Thank
I'm
you.
appreciative to you.
I think it's important. I felt that it was so important to be vulnerable, to be successful, to be vulnerable, to go through your pain and to your journey, and to set example for other people so other people can relate. So when I go to another successful person, that person cares about their self-development, about their education, about their career, and everything. And I learn from them, and they're also very vulnerable with me as well. And I'm like, and I can relate, and I learn from their vulnerability. I learn from their mistake. And I'm like, I want to do that. I never had a role model. So I chose internet and I Googled people to set example and role model for myself. So I want to do that for other girls. I want the other girls is like, oh, look, it's possible. She did it. She came from nothing. She came from all those insecurities and like a hard childhood and like not a perfect marriage, but she's able to do it. So it's not rocket science. It's not like it's possible. So I want to make it possible for everybody to choose the path you want, to heal yourself, to get to love yourself, or to accept yourself. So that's the path that I want to create.
Absolutely. I'm no superwoman. There's no superwoman. There's no Superman. We're
Mhm.
just human being And I always refer my young clients to go and check out websites for Malala Yousafzai or Greta Thunberg,
Okay.
because they could do it. And you know their life story, Malala, having had that journey that she almost died, and now she received, the Nobel Peace Prize, and she's just so active in setting role models for Greta at the young age,
Yeah.
suffering from autism. It's just cool. It's
It
just
is.
cool.
It's
So,
beautiful to watch it. Yeah, it is. I want to thank you for staying with us at Femme Fatale by Helen. And then I'm going to ask you, hopefully, again, you will have some more time to come and be on our podcast. It was gold.
Thank you so much, Helen. I really enjoyed our time. Absolutely. Anytime, I'll be there.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
So, فکر کنم اینجا دیگه رکورد استاپ کردیم ولی واقعا من عاشقتون شدم.
Oh my God. No. Thank you.